Rome, Thursday night, the 4th of October, 1582. People go to bed as on any other night. Tomorrow, obviously, should be October the 5th. But the next morning, the calendar said October the 15th. 10 whole days had vanished overnight. The 5th through the 14th became dates that never existed. This was no village curiosity. Spain, Portugal, Poland, Italy, on the same night, the same 10 days were erased from tens of millions of calendars. If your birthday fell in that gap, it simply did not come that year. Should 10 days come off the rent? What about interest on a loan? And above all, who has the right to delete time? The signature on the decree belonged to Pope Gregory XIII, but the real culprit was someone else. A very small thief that nobody had noticed for 1,600 years. The story begins 16 centuries earlier with Julius Caesar. Overhauling Rome's broken calendar, he laid down one rule. A year is 365 days, and every fourth year gets 1 day more. That is the birth of the leap year. A simple, beautiful rule. The problem is that the Earth never read it. The true year one full lap around the sun is 365 days, 5 hours, and 49 minutes, 11 minutes shorter than Caesar's year. 11 minutes a year is the time it takes to drink a coffee. Gather it across your whole life, and it is still less than half a day. So nobody noticed. But calendars outlive people. 11 minutes gathered for 128 years becomes a day. Pile it up beyond 1,000 years and the calendar runs 10 days ahead of the sky. The evidence was in the sky. In the year 325, when the church last set its calendar, the spring equinox fell on March the 21st. But by 1582, the sky's equinox had arrived on March the 11th. Spring itself had slipped 10 days across the calendar. For the church, this was existential. The date of Easter, its greatest feast, hangs on the spring equinox. If spring kept running away, Easter would one day be celebrated in summer. Scholars had in fact known about the era for centuries, yet nobody dared touch it. Fixing time meant meddling with the divine order, and worse, the whole world would have to move together on the same day. The man who finally acted was Gregory XIII. He gathered astronomers and mathematicians into a commission. At its heart was a physician from southern Italy who loved the stars, Aloysius Lilius. Fittingly for a physician, Lilius wrote 2 prescriptions. One cut out the 10 days already lost. 2 repair the calendar's heart so it would never drift again. Here is the second prescription. Keep adding a day every 4 years, but skip it in years divisible by 100 and restore it in years divisible by 400. That single line shrank the error from a day every 128 years to a day in roughly 3,300. Lilius never saw his prescription used. He died 6 years before the decree. His plan passed to his colleagues, and the Jesuit mathematician Clavius defended the numbers to the end. On the 24th of February 1582, the Pope signed the bull. The surgery was set for October, a stretch of the year thin on feast days. And there was exactly one thing they refused to touch: the week. Thursday was still followed by Friday. Only the dates leapt 10 days. The 7-day chain was not broken that night, and it has never been broken since. As science, The surgery was flawless. Yet, half of Europe refused it. The objection was not the arithmetic, but the signature. The name at the bottom of the order was the Pope's. This was just after the Reformation. In Protestant lands, people said they would rather disagree with the Son than agree with the Pope. The calendar had become a confession of faith. So Europe split in two. Catholic lands took the new calendar. Protestant and Orthodox lands kept the old. One continent now held two different todays. Cross a border, and the date jumped 10 days. Even inside Germany, calendars differed city by city. Cross one river, and October could rewind into September. Merchants and diplomats began writing two dates on every letter. England held out for 170 years. By then, the error had grown by one more day, so in 1752, 11 days had to go. Legend says angry crowds cried, "Give us our 11 days." But that riot is a myth born of a satirical painting. The real fights were far more ordinary: rent and interest. Sweden tried to be clever and embarrassed itself. It planned to slip across gradually by skipping leap days, but war scrambled the scheme. To reset, in 1712, it created February the 30th, a date the world has seen only 3 times. Japan abandoned the moon altogether. It dropped the lunar calendar it had used for over 1,000 years and switched to the solar one overnight in 1873. The day after the 2nd of December, Meiji Year 5, became New Year's Day of Meiji Year 6, so that December lasted just 2 days. There was money in it too, they say. The coming lunar year held 13 months, so officials would have drawn 13 salaries. The solar year needed only 12. The last was Russia. It held out until 1918. That is why the anniversary of its October Revolution now falls in November. From that night in Rome to the finish line took 336 years. Deleting 10 days needed one night. Getting the world to agree took more than 3 centuries. It would be nice if the story ended there. But this problem is alive right now in your pocket. The sky and the clock are still drifting apart. Today, the second is defined by atomic clocks. Off by 1 second in tens of millions of years, they are the truest ruler we have ever made. But the Earth's own spin wobbles slightly. This time it is not the calendar that is wrong, it is the Earth. So starting in 1972, humanity invented the leap second. Think of it as the leap year's 1 second little brother. Whenever the Earth lags, 1 second is quietly slipped into the clocks. It has happened 27 times, the last on the night of December 31st, 2016. But this kind little second kept causing accidents. Computers cannot make sense of a time called 235960. And on leap second nights, servers around the world ground to a halt. If Y2K was a bug about 2-digit years, this was a bug about a 61-second minute. A courtesy to the sky had become a bug in the digital world. So in 2022, the nations met in Paris and voted. The verdict: the leap second will be abolished by 2035. In 1582, we repaired the calendar to match the sky this time. We are letting the sky go and keeping our own clock. On that October night in 1582, people gave up 10 days because the sky was the only standard they trusted. Today, we trust a man-made clock more than the sky itself. The date you glance past today carries that 440-year migration. like the 10 lost days. The many ways humanity has measured time are gathered in the METRA archive. Calendars and clocks, units and numbers, whenever you're curious. This is METRA, digging into the systems of human civilization, one by one. If you want to know what we measure next, subscribe and like.